On this channel, we've talked about basically everything in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden one could talk about. We've ranked the Hokages, we've explained the wars, we even tried to rank the arcs. People didn't like that series that much. However, there is one cluster of content that we do genuinely tend to avoid on this channel, and that is filler content. See, if Naruto is known for one thing, unfortunately, to the masses all around the world, it's probably how much filler is in it. And that's not necessarily for the wrong reason. Both Naruto and Naruto Shippuden have roughly a 41 percentile of filler content, which means every 4 out of 10 episodes of Naruto are not canon. And that's just objectively not great, especially when you consider the fact that the majority of the filler is also just objectively not great. However, that doesn't mean all of the filler content in Naruto was a waste. In fact, a lot of it is not only interesting, but also shows us some of the most interesting abilities in the entire universe. See, because if there's one thing that's consistent about filler content, is that it was going to introduce new jutsu. In fact, sometimes it felt as though the most creative and interesting jutsu we ever got in all of Naruto happened in filler content. Now, this could possibly be because we were being introduced to new characters from places on the map we didn't know existed, and therefore they would use different jutsus from the characters that we did know, or it could possibly be because the Naruto showrunners understood that their filler wasn't all that interesting, so we might as well make the jutsus fun to look at. Regardless of the reasoning, Naruto filler gave us a ton of really interesting jutsu, and today I want to talk about those jutsu. And as somebody who hasn't watched the filler of this show in a loose decade, this is going to be a bit of a refresher course for me. So sit back, relax, and put on your filler caps, because today we're talking the top 10 filler jutsu from Naruto, ranked and explained. But before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling particularly generous, go ahead and follow my other YouTube channel, Dweeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime and manga. Or if you want to see me try to bring real life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow my brand new channel that I created with Stephen Heat, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Or if you just want to hear me talk anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. But before we get into all that, today we got to talk about our favorite recurring sponsor to the page, Raycon. Listen, you might have heard me talk about Raycon's everyday earbuds before and thought to yourself, there's genuinely no way I can get the same audio quality as all other competitors for half the price. I'm here to tell you once again, yes, you can. See, Raycon has sold over 3 million pairs of their previous generation of everyday earbuds, but now they've made improvements. See, because if ever there was a time to check out Raycon, now is that time, as they've released the upgraded version of their best-selling everyday earbuds. As these earbuds have an even more ergonomic design than the previous generation, have multi-point connectivity that allows you to connect to multiple devices simultaneously, and active noise cancellation, so anything you don't want to hear, you don't have to. Not to mention the everyday earbuds are available in multiple colorways. However, I'm a bit of a fundamentalist. I like them in black. However, there's a lot of other things I love about everyday earbuds, like the fact that they have a 32-hour battery life, a quick charge function that yields 90 minutes of listening time in 10 minutes of charging, and they're completely weatherproof and sweat resistant, which means when I'm in the gym sweating up a storm, I don't have to worry about these things breaking on me. But speaking of the gym, I've genuinely never found earbuds that work as well as these in the gym. I sweat up a storm. I'm shaking around. I'm trying to listen to my audiobooks or Otaku's Anonymous on Spotify, but when my ears get sweaty, my earbuds always fall out. That's not the case with Raycons. So what are you guys waiting for? Head to buyraycon.com/nchammer23 or click the link in my description box to get 15% off your purchase of Raycons today, plus free shipping. If you thought I was affordable before, wait until you use Nick's link. So we got a lot of big, riveting, well-known jutsus to talk about today. Right? Well, no, not necessarily. Well, at least not in a way that I would identify. But I'm also not the biggest defender of the filler. That being said, every jutsu we are going to talk about today is not only unique, but also very needed in the Naruto lore. They offer differing and interesting ways to get strong that manga canon material just simply never broaches. And I feel as though our entry at number 10 is a fantastic example of just that, because the first jutsu we're going to talk about today is offsetting sound. Offsetting sound is a jutsu used by Menma, and no, not that Menma, the other filler Menma. Yes, there's two. Why is there two? Fantastic question. Offsetting tone is an ability channeled by Menma through his ocarina. And yes, the small skinny boy with long blonde hair has an ocarina. We're really dipping our fingers in all the pots here. Or if we're making a Zelda reference, we're smashing all the pots here. And Menma's ocarina actually operates a lot like Link's ocarina. That is to say that it's magical and filled with a bunch of really cool abilities tied to individual songs. And while sound-based abilities are nothing new in the Naruto universe, I find the way that Menma uses his ocarina and offsetting sound to be infinitely interesting. See, Menma has shown the ability to do multiple things with his ocarina, whether it be increasing the strength and speed of his allies, release his allies from powerful genjutsu, or completely erase the memories of people that hear his song. And I love seeing stuff like this in the Naruto universe. I genuinely don't believe there is enough sound-based abilities, especially sound-based genjutsu-focused abilities, in the Naruto universe. Pretty much all we have is the Toad Confrontation Chant and Toyuya's flutes. However, every time we've ever seen a sound-based genjutsu used in combat, it appears to be one of the most powerful things we've ever seen. So even though this ability really only acts in a support role, I'm kind of blown away by the fact that more people haven't tried to learn this. If we know we need a medical ninjutsu specialist on every team, how about we get an ocarina player, like a drum boy? But enough about tooting away on that weirdly shaped flute. Coming up at number 9, we have kind of an ambiguous one. A good catch-all term for it would just be the abilities used by Gensho. But Nick, who's Gensho? Great question. Gensho Ryuden. See, Gensho has a couple of abilities that are rather interesting. See, Gensho has access when collaborating with his brothers to a jutsu that allows him to build a traditional Japanese castle out of wooden puppet parts. And this Japanese castle that he's able to build with the collaborations of his brothers are so incredibly powerful that even Might Guy, while using the 8 inner gates, wasn't able to break out of it. However, the jutsu I actually want to talk about today is the Wooden Men, and I'm gonna have to read the rest of this, Wooden Men Possession Turnover Manipulation Technique. Now, I will admit this technique does have a fair amount of setup. However, this technique forces two opponents to battle against each other to the death, but it does so by channeling their energies into wooden dummies that the two people fight with. Now, the idea behind this jutsu is to have a bunch of people fighting simultaneously, until eventually there's only one winner left. And since everybody's fighting using wooden dummies, they don't know who they're fighting and therefore who they're killing. And breaking out of this jutsu is nigh impossible. See, the only real way to understand about who you're battling against is have such a precise understanding of the taijutsu they use that you're able to identify it through the means of a wooden puppet. However, the only way to stop this jutsu is to have such fast and deadly and precise taijutsu that the wooden puppet you're using can't keep up with you, which breaks you out of the jutsu. And this is why Gensho was defeated in the first place, because Rock Lee and Might Guy are able to outpace their wooden puppets. However, in the circumstance that Gensho was to use this ability against anybody who wasn't trained in the 8 gates, it probably would have been their death. And so it definitely, while as weird as it may be, deserves to be on this list. Then he just called me and told me to pick up a package from my front door. It was this sweatshirt. He got it because we're both balloon boys. He's the best. I would die for him. Where were we? I got distracted. Are we done with the puppet prism thing? I think we're done with the puppet prism thing. Coming up at number 8, we have another kind of ambiguous one. Kikinoju's flowered ninja art. Now, Kikinojo is a character from the Land of Vegetables, which is a completely made up country because the filler was always making up fake countries. However, in the Land of Vegetables, kind of like how everyone uses flame-related abilities in the Land of Fire, everybody uses flower ninja arts. And while that might sound like super lame, it just isn't. It's kind of sick, actually. See, flower ninja arts are a combination of ninjutsu and genjutsu that allow the user of ninja flower arts to do something like surround an opponent with flowers and then ignite them, making a tornado of fire. The ability to turn flowers into explosives that can be remotely detonated like explosive tags. A genjutsu that surrounds an opponent in flower petals, that darkens their environment and makes them lose their way. Or just having the ability to make flowers hover and spin and harden them into steel-like quality so you can throw them at your opponent. Does any of that make sense in even the remotest sense of the word? No, it really shouldn't, because flower jutsu shouldn't go nearly that hard. However, if you watch Kikinoju, the forefront of flower ninja arts, you'll realize, wow, I guess you really can use anything so long as you got enough chakra and technique. But enough about all these techniques being used for the greater good. What about some evil ones? Well, fortunately, there's plenty of evil techniques on this list, like our number 7 spot, the Causality puppet. Now, this is a technique developed by Orochimaru, like so many other techniques. However, this technique is much darker than a whole lot of jutsus that even Orochimaru has made. See, this technique allowed for somebody to absorb a freshly killed corpse. And by absorbing that freshly killed corpse, the user is able to make that body an extension of their own. And thus, by absorbing these freshly killed corpse, the user is able to absorb the techniques of the body they've absorbed. However, while this technique might sound incredibly broken, you're telling me I can just absorb a bunch of people and get all their techniques? Unfortunately, the usage of this technique also warps the mind of the user, making them, with the more corpses that they absorb, more and more unstable. Now, this is not to be confused with the Chimera technique from the Will of Fire Shippuden movie, though if I do admit they are rather similar. But since we're talking about the Causality puppet, we should talk about another ability used by somebody who used the Causality puppet, which would be our number 6 entry, the Curse Mandala, which was used by Arashi. The Curse Mandala is one of the more interesting techniques in Naruto, and I genuinely believe it might have been the inspiration for particle style. See, this is a technique that was revealed to the Naruto universe in the same arc as the Causality puppet, and that's because it was used by Arashi and the rest of the Fuma clan in the same arc that introduces the Causality puppet. See, this is a technique that's only known to one ancient clan, and that would be the Fuma clan. Now, the Fuma clan were from the land of rice fields. However, when Orochimaru settled the land of sound there, their clan was kind of absorbed into the village of sound. However, even though they were absorbed by Orochimaru, doesn't mean that they weren't powerful, as the Fuma clan had a jutsu passed down through their lineages that traps a victim in a pyramid-like chakra shape. And this pyramid chakra shape will get smaller and smaller as the user brings their hands together. Anybody caught in this mandala will eventually be crushed once the user is able to finally bring their hands together. However, that doesn't mean that being trapped in this technique is an absolute loss. The user of this technique must keep their hands clasped together at all times. And if the user's will falters, or if the person trapped inside the mandala is strong enough, and that's not good, because a massive amount of energy is required to make the cursed mandala in the first place. And therefore, if somebody is able to break out of the cursed mandala, it releases an insane amount of energy, which actually most of the time ends up hurting the user. And ironically, the only person saved from this massive blast of energy was the person trapped in the cursed mandala. Not a great system, if you ask me. But unless you're the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, getting caught in this cursed mandala is pretty much wraps for you. So it deserves a spot pretty high up on this list. But not as high as one of the most powerful and under-talked about Kekkei Genkai in the entirety of Naruto, Ranmaru's Kekkei Genkai. No, it doesn't have a name. See, Ranmaru is an orphan from the Hidden Mist. An orphan who was pseudo-adopted by Raiga, the wielder of the twin lightning blades from the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. And while Ranmaru had a weak and frail body, Ranmaru had an ocular-based Kekkei Genkai that by the time it was introduced was one of the strongest dojutsu in the entire show. See, Ranmaru's Kekkei Genkai, when activated, made his eyes glow red. And whenever his eyes glowed red, he gained abilities similar to that of the Byakugan. That is to say that whenever Ranmaru activates his eyes, he gains massive extrasensory perception, like being able to view and hear things that are happening from very far away and through objects. On top of that, this dojutsu also allows for him to find others and track chakra. On top of this, like with many other visual Kekkei Genkai, this dojutsu has the ability to counter other people's dojutsus. However, it goes a little bit further than just making Ranmaru immune to Sharingan-based genjutsu. It also allows for Ranmaru to basically shut down other people's Byakugan, stopping Byakugan that it's locked in battles with from being able to sense chakra. On top of this, Ranmaru's Kekkei Genkai also allows for him to use rather elaborate genjutsu, or mask his own chakra signature. In fact, he's even been able to manufacture other copies of his chakra signature to trick Byakugan users. Ties into the fact that he gets extrasensory perception boosts, like with the Sharingan. And yeah, when this Kekkei Genkai dropped, it was kind of crazy. And that's not even considering the fact that Ranmaru, through the power of this Kekkei Genkai, is able to transfer part of his life force to others to keep them alive, like one's own life jutsu, however, like 100 episodes before it's revealed. So yeah, it's kind of nuts. And for being entirely real, if the Jogan was never announced, this would be the one true eye. But enough about Ranmaru, I want to talk about the real greatest filler arc in all of Naruto, the Village Hidden in the Stars arc. But more importantly, at number 4, I want to talk about the mysterious peacock method. Yes, that was the actual name of the jutsu, at least in English. So the mysterious peacock method is the iconic jutsu of Hoshigakure, a technique that uses chakra-enhancing radiation from the meteorite that fell into the center of the Village Hidden in the Stars 200 years prior to the start of Naruto's timeline. When it comes to versatility of techniques, I don't know if there's another technique in all of Naruto, not just filler, that is as versatile as the mysterious peacock technique. See, by harnessing this chakra-enhancing meteorite radiation, users of these techniques are able to make things like giant chakra beasts. They can join together to make an even larger chakra beast, control their chakra feathers that sit behind them to attack, like Naruto in his KCM2 form. It grants the users flight through the medium of making wings from their chakra. It allows them to make dragons and rope. It allows users who have identified that they're close to death to draw a symbol on the ground that allows them to resurrect themselves as an apparition, to either help somebody they love or even to score with whoever killed them. It was one of the coolest jutsus ever introduced in Naruto, and unfortunately, it's not canon. And there's kind of a good reason for that, because as diverse and interesting as the mysterious peacock method is, the radiation being pulled in to enhance the chakra of the users who are using it is highly dangerous, as continued usage of this technique eventually tears down the physical body of who's ever using it, leading to a slow, agonizing, and painful death. You know, like regular radiation poisoning. But with this kind, at least you get to be cool for a couple of years. But since we're talking about some of my favorite abilities in all of Naruto, let's get to our number 3 entry on the list. Yokomo Kurama's genjutsu. Or I guess I should just say the genjutsu of the Kurama clan. See, the Kurama clan are well known for the proclivity for genjutsu. genjutsu. However, once every couple of generations, a Kurama clan member is born with a proclivity for genjutsu that far surpasses even their own clansmen. And thus, these people are known to have inherited the entirety of the Kurama clan's Kekkei Genkai at its fullest power. Now, this Kekkei Genkai is simply known as the Kurama clan Kekkei Genkai, because while we can make cool abilities, naming them, not so much. And Yakumo is this generation's inheritor of the entirety of the Kurama clan's Kekkei Genkai. Thus, should the entity living inside of Yakumo, that is technically the representation of this Kekkei Genkai, known as id, ever take control of her, she's granted access to genjutsu so powerful that it convinces those cast in her genjutsu's brains that whatever is happening to them in the genjutsu is actually happening to their body. And thus, if Yakumo uses genjutsu to stab you in the heart a couple of times, your heart will actually just explode. And thus, Yakumo has access to genjutsu that can literally kill, something that is exceedingly rare. But this doesn't only just work on individuals, as Yakumo is able to, after her subconsciousness took over, place the entirety of Konoha under genjutsu, and while the entirety of Konoha was under genjutsu, she was able to paint a lightning bolt striking the Hokage's office, and boom, it happened. Yakumo, with full control over Kekkei Genkai, well, I guess full control is inaccurate because she can't control it, is able to basically do whatever she wants through the medium of incredibly powerful genjutsu. So yeah, if she was able to control it, she'd be one of, if not the most powerful person in the universe. Unfortunately, she can't, and it's not canon, so who cares? But speaking of absolute city busters, next up on our list, we have our second entry from Menma, and yes, that Menma, because coming in at number 2, we have the Great Spiraling Ring. But Nick, what's a Great Spiraling Ring? Well, it's definitely not a Rasengan. See, a spiraling ring is essentially a purple Rasengan that has white chakra rings floating around it. This technique is shown to be able to match Naruto's Rasen Shuriken in power, because it is just Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. Because Menma is evil Naruto, and yes, that Menma. However, when that Menma decides to use the greatest version of the spiraling ring, it's so incredibly powerful that it levels all of Konoha probably faster than Pain's great almighty push. Like, it's so city level it hurts. And thus, the Great Spiraling Ring is actually one of the strongest jutsus we've ever seen in Naruto, point blank period. However, is it as strong as our number 1 entry on this list? Because coming in at number 1, we have Fury. This technique, created by Enno Gyoja and his grandfather Hotaru, is a genjutsu that was planted on Hotaru's back. This technique, while powerful enough to destroy an entire village in one fell swoop, does require a fair amount of setup. See, because prior to launching Fury at its fullest power, a technique known as, and I'm gonna have to read this, Tsuchigomo style forbidden life technique release creation of heaven and earth needs to be used. But Nick, that's quite the name. That must be a really complicated jutsu. No, not really. This technique simply releases the seal of Fury on Hotaru's back and then makes her accumulate like a ton of nature energy. And then that nature energy is then used to explode in what will later be known as Fury. However, what's interesting about this technique is that technically the user acts as a passive vessel, meaning that while they're pulling in all the nature energy, they don't necessarily have to be the person who explodes all the nature energy. It can happen without their consent. But fortunately for everybody, Hiruzen said that this jutsu is a kinjutsu and therefore shouldn't be used. You know, because of its ability to destroy entire villages in one fell swoop. And fortunately for us, whenever something's labeled a kinjutsu, it's never used again. You know, until of course it is, and Utakata has to absorb the entire energy of the Fury's explosion. But you know, at least Hiruzen called it a kinjutsu. And with that, those are the top 10 most powerful filler jutsu in all of Naruto, ranked and explained. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Is there any filler jutsu that you feel as though should have been on this list? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Oh, Nick, Mecha Naruto should have been on there. Not a jutsu!